Hello plant friends, this is Miro from Basic Plants and welcome to my channel. Today we will talk about a more of a complex topic, so it is time to get a bit serious. I wonder if there is ice cream. Well, for those of you who stayed after that, let's begin. Today we will talk about semi-hydroponics. Instead of making a very long video and talking about all the details of semi-hydroponics, and no one will sit through that, I decided to make a shorter video covering all the bases, and then if you would like, we can go further into details into some of the future videos. I divided this video into 8 topics, so if you want to jump ahead to a particular topic, well, you can't, because I'm just not there yet with all of this. So you will just have to sit through and watch it, and I promise you, you may learn something that you did not know about semi-hydroponics, and it will be interesting. First of all, what is semi-hydroponics? The semi-hydroponics is a type of a culture where typically one plant is grown per a pot, though I have seen that people grow multiple plants in just one large container, and it involves some inert inorganic media such as LECA that will not break down over time. The whole principle is based on water and nutrients being always available to the plant. The inert media is wicking, which means that it will just move those nutrients and water from the reservoir to the plant roots. When it comes to media, in semi-hydroponics, inert media is always used. Many people use LECA because it is available almost everywhere, and LECA is just lightweight expanded clay aggregate. Now, it is very important to know that not all LECA is the same. Some LECA will be more wicking, some LECA might be less wicking. It all just depends on the structure inside the LECA. So, of course, you're not going to take a cross-section, but you can just try out and you will see which one works better for you. Typically, a good quality LECA will be better. Personally, I use Plagroon LECA. By the way, this video is not sponsored by Plagroon, but if you want to, feel free to just call me. I have used in the past LECA that is cheaper. Well, I didn't actually use it because I quickly realized that it's not usable because it was so brittle that you could just break it with your fingers. So I was not going to use that, and it was actually very, very lightweight compared to regular LECA. But it was still sold as LECA, so there are a couple of things that you need to be aware of when picking the right LECA to use. First of all, you want uniformity among all the LECA balls. You don't want some of them to be larger and some of them to be smaller. Why? Well, because the basic principle of semi-hydroponics is that there is a lot of air there and there is a lot of air circulating. So if you have uniformity, they will just sit nicely and they will create air pockets. But if you have some pieces that are very small, they may clog those air pockets, which will not be good. When you get your bag of LECA, you will need to treat LECA somehow. I will not cover this because this is a bit more complex. Many people just rinse it with tap water, but this may not be enough. That will just get rid of the dust that there is present. But there are other things in LECA that you need to be aware of. The type of water that you will use is very important for several different reasons. I heard that some people use tap water, but I really don't think you should be using tap water. I don't know where you live in the world, but generally tap water isn't as clean as you need it to be for semi-hydroponics. Before I continue, let's introduce our body, TDS. TDS is total dissolved solids, and it is expressed in ppm, which is just parts per million. When you take tap water and you measure the TDS, you will probably get a figure that is from 200 to 400 ppm. To measure it, you will need a device that looks like this. This is a TDS meter. I have 3 glasses of water, and I'm pretty sure I mixed all of them up, but when we measure the TDS, we will know which one is which. So let's first start with this glass. And I do think this is just regular tap water. Now, if we measure here, I'm not sure if you can see. If we measure it, you can see it says 381. So 381 is the ppm of this water. Nothing has been added. This is just water straight from the tap. So that's a very high starting point of 380 ppm. If you have a filter, there is a pitcher with filter. My friend has that, and her starting point is around, I would say, 220. If I remember correctly, when she filters it, it's down to 160. Again, that's a pretty high starting point. The next water that you can see is rainwater. Now, if I submerge this, if you submerge it, you will see it's 40. That's a bit high for rainwater. I was able to get 20, but it will depend on the water, the type of the bucket where you collect it. If you collect it in a metal bucket, the TDS will be higher, which I noticed just by measuring. The next one is distilled water. If we measure the TDS in distilled water, you will see that it is only 3. Why is this important? Well, it means that there are already minerals or some other things in your water that are already dissolved. Now, when you add fertilizer, this will increase. In semihydroponics, if you start with 400 and if you add fertilizer to that, the number will be very high. What does this mean? Well, it means that eventually it will lead to poisoning and your roots will just die in that type of environment. So they will not be able to stay alive. I'm still experimenting with the appropriate amount of ppm. I try to stay quite low, around 100-ish, 200-ish, it depends what type of a plant it is. Generally, people agree that it's better to use a small amount of fertilizer and just to more frequently supply those nutrients to the plant. When it comes to the type of pot that you will use for semi-hydroponics, really you just need to follow the basic principle, and then you could probably use any container that you would like and what is convenient for you. The basic principle is that you need to form a reservoir at the bottom, and reservoir is about 1 or 1.5 inch tall, so maybe from 2.5 to 4.5 centimeters or something like that. Some people say it needs to be 1/3 of the weight of the pot, but I think that's a bit too high. I kind of tend to stay lower than that. Another important thing is that you need to be able to flush out. So, holes are very important in this case. You need to be able to water quickly from the top and get all those old nutrients out from the pot and then supply fresh nutrients. That's just a very basic principle of how semi-hydroponics works. This is Hoya globulosa and it's just in this regular cover pot, and I melted 2 holes here that form the reservoir. So this will be the level of the water in the pot at all times, not at all times because sometimes you need to show the plant and you may spill the water. So not at all times. You will just, when you water it, you will water from the top quickly. The water will just go out through those holes. You will change the water in the system and you will supply fresh water and fresh minerals to the plant. I don't like this, to be honest with you. It's a bit messy. I just, when I move it, I have to find a larger container and then the water will just go like that. And most of the time, like 9 out of 10, I will spill something. So I'm not a great fan of this. If you are out of pots, you can use what I did for this Hoya Carry. Just use a plastic cup. I did use 2 cups here. One is just instead of a cover pot, and it serves the purpose when I just move it or accidentally knock it down, which is very often, that I just don't spill the water everywhere. But this is the actual pot and you can see the holes are there that I melted. So again, the water will be up to that level. I need to refill this. This is not, you should not leave your plant without water. So I need to refill this one. Third option, and personally my favorite, is this. It's just a net pot and this is a cover pot. Why do I like this? Well, I can just take this to any type of container. When I just flush it out, when I'm cleaning the LECA, the water will just flow normally. It will not go at a weird angle that will just make me spill it everywhere. And I can fill the fresh water here. What plant can you put in semi-hydroponics? Well, I don't have an answer to this. I've tried semi-hydroponics with Hoyas, with certain Hoyas, not with all of them. I've tried semi-hydroponics with orchids, and I have tried semi-hydroponics with aeroids. I can tell you it works well for all of those. It may not work for every Hoya. It may not work for every aeroid. It may not work for every orchid. In fact, I know that some people have moved Vandas to semi-hydroponics and it hasn't worked for them. But then again, you hear some other people who grow Vandas in semi-hydroponics and they do amazingly well. So it will depend on your environment, it will depend on the setup. There are many different factors here. The species of the plant is also a factor here. So in some cases, you will just have to try, see if it works, and if it fails, well, don't tell anyone about it. That's what I do. Let's talk about issues in semi-hydroponics. Like any other culture, there are issues in semi-hydroponics. Some of these issues go across the board and they are problematic for all types of media, for all types of cultures. First of that is nutrient buildup, mineral buildup. This can happen in any potting mix. It can happen in your regular potting mix, and it sure can happen in semi-hydroponics. When will this happen? Well, it will happen if you're not taking proper care of the plant in semi-hydroponics, if you are using too much fertilizer, or simply if you're not flushing frequent enough, if you're leaving that water to sit for a long time. Another thing to know about the semi-hydroponics is temperature. You have to be very careful about this. Clay aggregate is cooler than your regular mix. It's just the natural property of clay. Combined with water, it will lead to that cool evaporation and it will cool down the roots a bit. This is important to know if you have a plant that really likes warmth. If you put semi-hydroponics in a room and you are kind of near that low point for that plant, you can be sure that it will be cooler around the roots because of the clay aggregate. A way to solve this is to place your plant on a heat mat, and then that should warm up the media. Another issue with semi-hydroponics, as I previously mentioned, is water. I do not have unlimited amounts of rainwater. It is very limited, and to flush out all the time, you will need a lot of water. You will actually need more water than when you would regularly use it for a plant that is in a potting mix. This is why I haven't converted more plants. I only have, I would say, less than 20 plants that are in semi-hydroponics. When it comes to watering, measure to save water is not just topping it up. If we take a look at this Hoya, now the reservoir is empty. If I just use the water to get to this level, which is the highest point in the reservoir, that's not good. You need to flush it and flush it. You need to have the water flow. And one final thing to be aware of is the pH. LECA is usually neutral when it comes to pH, and for some plants this may not be good. For orchids, for Hoyas, epiphytic plants tend to like more acidic mix. There is a pH range within which plants can absorb the nutrients. If you are out of this pH range, plants will not absorb the nutrients. Of course, there are benefits to semi-hydroponics. As I previously mentioned, temperature can be a drawback, but it can be also a benefit. If you grow a plant that is a cooler growing plant, the property of LECA can actually help you here. It will keep it slightly cooler than your room is. So you may be able to grow a plant that likes it cool. Another good thing about semi-hydroponics is that the clay pebbles are actually reusable. If you treat them correctly, you can reuse them. But I would say the biggest, absolutely the biggest positive thing about semi-hydroponics is that the root growth is insane. I can just tell you this Hoya Carey has been planted a couple of weeks ago, and you can already see some roots showing here. Repotting is said to be easier because you don't need to remove any old pieces of LECA. You can just take it out of the container, pop it into a new container, add LECA around it, and that's the end of the story. This is also good for the plant because it's not very likely that it will have any transplant shock. You will not damage any of the roots this way. Now, in the end, let's talk about my experience. I find semi-hydroponics extremely useful for cuttings that are not doing well. If you have a Hoya that has shipped really, really badly, semi-hydroponics is most likely to get that Hoya recovered. If you are underwaterer, you can put plants in semi-hydroponics and they will do well. If you are overwater, semi-hydroponics is very good for you too, because plants are very unlikely to rot in semi-hydroponics unless you're doing something wrong. I do find it more challenging, more time-consuming. I can water my plants in regular mix very quickly. I just need more time to water plants in semi-hydroponics. I just wanted to tell you that semi-hydroponics is not as easy as you would think. There are some rules there. I see that many people just convert plants to semi-hydroponics thinking it's the easiest way to take care of the plant. It's not. There are benefits, there are drawbacks, as with everything. You will get amazing growth in the root zone, but it's very easy to make a mistake. It's very easy to mistreat a plant in semi-hydroponics if you're not paying attention to all the aspects that I just mentioned. Thank you for watching. I hope I did not bore you to death with this video. I know it's a bit long, it's a bit dry, but I apologize for that. If you would like me to make shorter videos covering each of these sections, I will do it. Just let me down in the comments below if you would like, if that's something that you would like to hear. If you like the video, there is a thing, it looks like that. If you want, you can also subscribe. I would very appreciate it, and then you can watch all the videos, and you can watch more videos of me talking about stuff. You can also follow me on Instagram at basie.plants, and feel free to leave your questions there. I would like to do a Q&A repot. This philodendron here, it needs repotting badly. It's severe. If you want me to answer some questions, you can leave them in the comments below here, or you can head to my Instagram and just send me the cues. But don't make it very difficult. Don't make it a very difficult question like what is life about? I don't know. I really don't know. Bye!